Welcome to my podcast, Actual Leigh. This is the continuation of last week's conversation. Let's dive right back in. So it could, maybe be enough that I could put something aside that could be kind of like this thing that I build on so that eventually I could do the road trip and actually go see these people in
hmm
person and just kind of take pictures along the way and you know.
Yeah, it's such a weird experience. It, not to backtrack, but like meeting my best friend for the first time in person, it was so like leading up to that, it was so strange. Like trying to wrap my head around the fact that I was going to meet this person in person. They were going to be there, flesh and blood in front of me,
Yeah.
not through a screen, not over earbuds or headphones or whatever. And it's like when she got off the plane and came down for arrivals, we hugged each other and I literally said the words, "Oh my God, you're real."
Yeah.
Because it's like that there's that tangibility. Like, and we had sent each other packages and stuff, and we are on the phone at least once a week. And but there wasn't um that like reality right there in front of me. And
Yeah.
that was
Like the
so
almost like tangibleness of it.
yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly it. That they're now a whole three-dimensional person. And that was like the weirdest thing. And I'm really interested in um meeting these people that I've come into contact with and actually having them go from that online persona that you see to a tangible thing person in front of you.
Right.
Um, and it's like what you said before about, you're the same person in person that you are online. And um, that's like an interesting thing because so much you worry. I worry, and I think a lot of people do, is because so much of what we see online is curated. Like you only see this little tiny snippet of a
Right.
person, and do you really, in some cases, do you really know that person? Um, and I
Yeah.
think in a lot of time, a lot of ways you don't, and to kind of have that go from that online to reality, um, it's a to me it's a real mind bender, you
Yeah.
know. Um,
Yeah. It
it's
is. You made me think of something. Because back when, like when I was talking to that person in Ireland, there wasn't social media, right? There were
mhm,
there were bulletin boards where you could have these conversations, but it wasn't visual. There wasn't really like the way it is now where people are kind of put like showcasing themselves. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
And so most of our interactions were chatting, like just chatting, talking,
mhm.
have emails, and occasionally using like ICQ or IRQ, something like whatever that what it was.
ICQ,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
I
then
remember
or
that one.
stuff like that. But so it's like it was direct conversation. So it's a little different. Whereas now we have the parasocial phenomena, which I mean, I think people had that with actors a little bit in the past, but I think like social media has made it easier to have that because you get these snippets of humanity that you may not necessarily get with a celebrity. Although now I think there's celebrities, you have like the really big famous celebrities who are like, you don't get that much. And then you have the celebrities that people find relatable and they get more of that social media presence. And so I think people do have more parasocial connections with them. And that whole like aspect of it, I find very interesting. And I tend not to feel connected to people until it's established that we're connected by having a conversation that says we're connected. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like I'm
Yeah,
like, I don't think I've connected to somebody until they give me permission to connect to them.
yeah.
So I don't really experience the parasocial connection. And I feel like I kind of have to know someone for a couple of years before I get a really good sense of like knowing them, but most people I don't think are like that. But I had to learn by having my my content is that some people are going to have parasocial connections with me,
Hmm.
right? And I
Yeah.
that wasn't even I am like everybody's a potential friend, right? Like I just treat everybody like I don't, and I had to start creating boundaries where some people are followers or fans. That's a weird word, but because that is the dynamic. They're not compatible to my life as a friend, but I
Right.
appreciate their existence for supporting my content and that they enjoy what I'm doing, and there's like a balance, a boundary that has to be there. But sometimes like when I first connect with them and I can't tell, and they like overstep into that parasocial thing where they're kind of telling me who I am, and I'm like, huh? Oh, like it's strange. And that to me is like very much in line with how most people kind of connect with people to begin with, like until they learn how to have like meaningful, healthy connections, right? Is that they project who they think a person is onto another person, then they interact with that projection.
Right.
So most people, I think, go around having parasocial connections, even with the people that are in their lives in person. Um,
Yeah. I mean, it's like I mean again with me and Megan, it having that week where really we did things because she's never been out here before, so we did certain things that were, very Rochester, um but we also did very like everyday things. And I think that's when you really get into the meat of a person. We literally went to the DMV together because
those are
I had to renew my license.
those are some of
So
the
we,
best things to do with people. In my
it,
opinion, like, the mundane.
Mhm. I mean, but I think that, and for me, it was those mundane, everyday things that were really the most exciting, the most informative. And she felt the same way. It was just, I really think that, because when you go to do something that's planned out and it's not something that you do on a regular basis. Um, it's almost that same sense of being curated as in online because you have this thing, it's structured, to a certain extent, and there's an expectation of behavior between the two of you. Um, so you don't get that real, um, like I said, you don't get to the meat of the person, and that was something that I really um, was grateful for.
Yeah.
Just, you know, one night, you know, her and my daughter, she taught her how to make fried rice. It's just an everyday thing, just cooking together. Um, those are the things to me that foster those
Yeah.
real
That's the
connections.
foundation building stuff because that's where you really get to see the sort of meat and potatoes of a person.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I those are so like when I do travel to go see friends, like when I go to San Diego or whatever, we don't usually do anything except for like I hang out at their place, and then we go to grocery shopping, or I just do normal stuff, and then like he plays video games in the evening and I'll just hang out on the couch and watch and or do
Hmm.
my own thing. And I've always been told I'm very easy to have around as a visitor because I'm not like entertain me, because I'm
Yeah.
very content just being around people I like, just doing the things we got to do, right? But that's
Hmm.
also one of my favorite ways to spend quality time with people is parallel play, is being
Yes.
in a room with someone. And I got an eyelash being very rude right now. Um, and they're doing their thing, I'm doing my thing. They might occasionally yip yap at each other, but maybe not. There's something about that just like, and I don't get that a lot because my housemate doesn't know how to do it. If I move suddenly, he's like, got to be involved. He doesn't know how to coexist in that way. So I've been like I have friends that stream when they're gaming and I'll put that on and kind of get the same. Or the
Yeah.
handyman was here yesterday. I was like took advantage of him being here doing stuff to get a bunch of stuff done. Like
It's yeah, and that's so a neurodivergent thing where it's like just the presence of another person, um, you get you just find this need to do something. Um, and I've had many nights where I'm on the phone with Megan or somebody else where I will literally start cleaning.
Yeah,
I didn't hadn't planned on cleaning. I had planned on sitting and talking to them. Nope. I'm
no, I
talking
can't.
and cleaning, you know.
Yep.
Um, and it's, do you think that like somebody like your housemate who doesn't know how to do the parallel play thing, do you think that is related to like um similar to somebody who can't handle silence?
No, because I mean, it might be sometimes. In his case, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because he can just sit and doodle and silence or he's not super chatty.
Hmm.
Um, he's more talkative with me now than, my therapist would joke that I was like the introvert whisperer because I make people who are generally not comfortable talking, like get them talking.
Yep.
But it's like he never learned how to do that. And it's interesting because he has three brothers, so you would think like they would have learned how to coexist instead of always being kind of involved. But and I don't fully understand it because he can't explain what's happening in those moments of like
Hmm.
why, like is it an anxiety response type thing, where he's just worried that he's missing something, or is it just really that like his brain doesn't feed off of that situation,
Hmm.
I'm not super sure. He also cannot multitask in the same, like I can put on a TV show and I can get stuff done. He will put on a TV show and he'll start to do things because that's what he wants to do both, and then he just sits there staring at the TV and doesn't really get anything done. um and I can't get anything done unless I have the TV on. It's like a complete different like
Yeah.
thing. So it is different. But he has been learning to like be like, hey, I noticed you carried your laundry upstairs. Do you need me to hang out in the room while you do
Hmm.
that? Because I used to have a friend that I would be like, hey, you want to hang out? I need to put my laundry away. Like, and I didn't know that I
Yeah.
was neurodivergent, but I was always
Yep.
very good at accommodating in a way where I was telling people what I needed and explaining neurodivergence without knowing that that's what it was. And when I joined
Yeah.
TikTok, it was like, oh, but
Is
yeah,
TikTok how you really kind of discovered that you were neurodivergent?
yeah. Within 3 days of being on TikTok, I was on autism TikTok and then ADHD TikTok.
Yeah.
So, and it was like I got the ADHD diagnosis pretty within like the first year, and I haven't been able to get evaluated for the ASD because the ADHD guy was like, "You're not high needs enough," but he didn't ask me any questions.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
he never
I've
asked
had
me
the
how
same
I was.
thing.
Yeah, so I'm gonna ask for a referral from my primary because the clinic, he told me the clinic only works with children. I went and looked up the description on the clinic and it's literally for adults, and it has a description on how the doctor can do the referral. So I'm just gonna give her that and be like, can you just do it? Because that dude's a dick. Like like I got the referral. It was supposed to be to get evaluated for ADHD, PTSD, and autism. And he did the ADHD and then said no on the ASD without a conversation. And then the PTSD, he said, not now. We should only focus on one thing at a time. And I was like, yeah, that's like going to the gym and only working out your right arm. Like, you know,
Yeah.
he we didn't he we didn't have a good relationship, and it got to the point
Yeah.
that he'd be like, I know you hate me, but and then say whatever he had to say. And I was like, has nobody ever stood up to this guy before? He was very
Yeah.
like he like because I had told him, because my mom filled out notes about the ADHD stuff. and her notes were like really confusing because it's like she didn't ever pay attention to who I was. And so I did make that comment. I was like, well, her stuff isn't, that's not at all. Like if you look at my school notes, it specifically says she talks too much in class, doesn't have friends. Like she was like, she's like, I wasn't aware of her not having friends, you know?
Yeah.
And so he was like, he starts telling me how I have all this rage towards my mom and all of this stuff. And I was like, dude, bro, I'm not 23 years old. I did the work. Okay. I don't have all this rage towards my mom. I accept my mom as an undiagnosed neurodivergent person that has executive dysfunction issues and can be highly volatile, but she's not a bad person. Like,
Right.
she could have been a better mom, but it is what it fucking is. And I did better. And somewhere along the way, she gave me the tools to do better for my son. So, you know,
Mhm.
um, and he just was like, he literally spent like, and I was just sitting there, like, I start laughing while he's telling me about me, but it's not based on anything I said. He was just, I don't know what. And I said, okay, so what you said doesn't apply to me. And it sounds like you're very comfortable relying on assumptions without data collection. But I'm not appropriate to be sent for ASD evaluation. So but I've been off my meds for 2 years and it looks like I might actually be able to start them in the next few weeks. And I'm pretty fucking excited because
Oh, that's awesome.
they helped me so much. Like they changed my life in a way that I can't even quantify. Like it because it didn't just help my brain, it didn't just help me feel in sync with myself, it helped my health. Like I started being able to eat more foods because I wasn't reacting to as much stuff. Like I stopped having as much pain. My heart problems got better when I wore they were all worried that the meds were going to fuck up my heart because I have an arrhythmia. And then
Hmm.
when they did the come on brain, the monitor for 2 weeks, I actually had less arrhythmia than I did off the meds. Like, and then during the shortage I lost access and none of my doctors would help me. It's like the one thing that's helped me in the last decade. They're like, sorry bro, stigma. So yeah, so now I'm working towards that again, and I'm really hoping that this time it'll be something that helps me for longer than 11 months.
Yeah. Yeah, that this the shortage was brutal.
Yeah, all
Um,
my friends got their meds. Some of them had a couple days delay. I was not able to get my prescriptions filled for 6 months. I just gave up. The ADHD went, I
yeah.
can't do this anymore. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
so, yeah.
Yeah, I was what I ended up on was I ended up on Vyvanse. Partly because the combination of the ADHD diagnosis with also being diagnosed with binge eating disorder. And that is actually the only medication that is actually authorized to treat binge eating disorder. And the change, like you said, it changed my life. Like all of a sudden, I'm focused and I'm getting things done. I'm at work and I'm not constantly, my brain going off all over 10 directions. Um, and as soon as I went off of it, as soon as I couldn't get it, the change was almost immediate. And it was really hard to deal with. But
Yeah.
it's, that I think, and I think a lot of people don't understand what that actually does. Like, it's funny how I figured out that I have ADHD and ended up getting diagnosed. Very likely autistic too, but my mother kept all of my report cards from when I was in elementary school. Now, my oldest daughter, she is ADHD, um, OCD, and she's very likely autistic. But because she's high functioning, nobody wants to take her on to diagnose it, which I'm running into the same thing. So I'm going back and I'm looking. I was looking at these report cards for myself, and I'm reading the teacher comments, and I'm like, boy, that sounds familiar. So of course I'm a information pack rat. I go and I pull my daughter's uh, report cards. And I shit you not, they were almost word for word the comments. And I'm going, shit. And it's like as soon as I hit that, I was like, this makes so much sense. Like
Right.
I mean, our generation, ADHD when we were in elementary school wasn't a thing.
Yeah. My
Nobody
brother
knew what it was.
my brother was diagnosed with it when, let's see, he's 5 years younger than me. So
Mhm.
my adopted brother, he was diagnosed with it, and my stepmom went to like seminars and stuff because it was so new. So they had these like support groups and trying to help people learn about it. And my stepmom was like, I think you're ADHD or ADD as well, because that's, that was the term
Yeah.
then. And my mom was just like, "Pff," like yeah. And so that was, that was it. But it was always kind of there in the back of my head. And if you look at my report cards, if you just look at all of that stuff, the patterns are there. Like I would, once I got to high school, I would cut the classes that were boring. So I came to
Hmm.
school second, fourth, and sixth, and I skipped the other ones. I had an agreement with my teachers. If I passed the tests, I would get a passing grade. That's it. And that was how they kept me in school. And I would cut school and go to the fucking library and read. Like,
Yeah.
and because I was bored and I hated everybody in the school. Like I didn't like the kids were I never had really had friends. I had like one longtime friend, but we weren't like in the same classes and we weren't super close. It was just like she was never mean to me. Um and otherwise I didn't have that. And even like you have people, I try to get people to sign my yearbook, and their notes were not like they were my friends.
Yeah.
It'd be like, I'm glad you don't talk to me as much as you used to, that those kind of things.
Oh
Like
God.
and
Oh, that's horrible.
but I didn't, even though it felt bad to not have somewhere, because I would kind of like, even the nerds were kind of scared of me, and because I was a motomer, I thought they should tolerate me, but they were all like, I was very loud and physically aggressive. I think stimming, like a part of my ASD stimming was like physical. I love wrestling. I loved physical pressure, like, so I was kind of violent. And it was very soothing for me, but I think that, scary for other people. But yeah, it was just, this is like hanging out at the library. But it actually made me see a deficit in other people, not in myself. And it's not that like I don't have imposter syndrome and that I don't like have confidence issues or whatever, but I saw like the lack of curiosity about people that were different as being an inherent issue with them and with culture in general. And so there was a certain amount of internalizing that I did not do because I rejected the social norm part. Like I never really conformed to like feminine appearances or whatever. So I wore whatever I wanted, and people would be like, it's weird you don't wear like a particular style. And I'm like, I wear what I want to wear. And like I had like the sides of my head were shaved and my hair was blue in like 91. And that wasn't like, the alternative scene
Wow.
wasn't even there yet. But that was the only way I
Yeah.
felt good in my skin, was if I looked the way I needed to look. And so I got caught, like my nickname from all the from the girls voted most unique in the yearbook. I was called Nazi Dyke. That
Oh,
was
wow.
yeah. And I had almost no white friends. That in person, that's still true. It's online, it's more mixed, but in person I have very few white friends. It's not intentional. It's just I clicked with people that don't fit with like whatever was the norm. And so like all my friends who are not white, they all tend to also be like nerdy and probably
Hmm.
neurodivergent, and you know, and there's just something there. There's like that we connect, at a certain level. So to me, I'd just be like, I don't even argue with them. I'm like, one, there's nothing wrong with being a dyke. I mean, irrelevant. And I know I'm not racist. And I know that if I was going to kill anyone, it'd probably be you. So I don't really have a problem. Like you guys are assholes. And I was just like, okay, Birkenstocks, like,
Wow, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, God, Nazi Dyke, holy cow, and I just hit Fatso. Jesus.
it was some crazy. There were like I did got called fat, and that was fun because in eighth grade they do the body test.
Oh
I
God, I
wasn't
remember
fat.
that. Right.
I did more pull-ups than most of the guys, and I was 16% fat. I just had gotten my hips before everybody else,
Hmm.
and I was strong. Like I was always really
Hmm.
muscular. So until my health issues kicked in, actually, I couldn't even wear jeans because my legs were so muscular.
Yeah.
Um, so that was like kind of like validating because they're like, "Oh, you're so fat, me," and I'm like, "No, I just have a big ass, better to kick you with." Like the fuck. But I like skateboarded and roller skated and stuff. So there's a reason
Yeah.
why I had the muscles.
Yeah. It's funny because it's like I know that I've noticed for me as I've gotten older, um, certain things that were, I would say, maybe hurtful when I was a kid. Like I don't care. Like if somebody calls me fat, it's kind of like that's it. That's all you've got. I mean, that's just easy. Why you're not going to put any effort in? It's like, look, if you're gonna, I've struggled with my weight my entire life.
Yeah.
At this point, you're just pointing out the obvious.
They're just being observant. They're not being
Yeah, I
insulting.
mean,
It's just a statement of fact or whatever. It's
I
like,
already know that I'm overweight.
yeah,
If you want to insult me, you're going to have to get a little more creative if you want to hurt my
yeah,
feelings.
yeah,
And I've noticed, like, turning 50, it's like, it's even my I don't give a shit meter has just,
right.
you know,
I'm very grateful my give a shit meter was already kind of not, there were certain things I definitely like avoided to minimize things that would hurt me because I knew. But
mhm.
those things have definitely with age gotten easier. And that's why I think part of why it became easier to be creative. Doing the clowning stuff, I used to like wearing a dress and wearing makeup in public gave me panic attacks because I was pretty sure everybody knew I was an imposter because I wasn't really a woman in that way.
Yeah,
That was something that like when my partners would tell me I wasn't feminine enough or wasn't like sexual enough in the way that they're expecting because of social whatever,
hmm,
that's the stuff that would like I would hear echoing, right? And even it's still there. And I combat it by doing some of the things that I do by just being like, fuck you guys. Like, just because you didn't appreciate my brand of shit. Like, but I had to learn to have that mindset that I had for other stuff already, right? But it was like it didn't translate to the things that were most vulnerable. Um,
yeah,
but that's the stuff the kids didn't have access to, right? Like it was just different.
yeah.
Yeah, if they made fun of me for being poor, that would get to me like because most of the kids there weren't very many like really really poor kids in the school, and there were only two fat kids in the school, and so we all kind of got bundled together.
It's
Which is
weird how that
weird.
happens.
Yeah, and but they were also poor kids, so so they got like the double whammy, but it was like I get made fun of like when my parents picked me up and the truck backfired or somebody figured out where I lived and the yard had car parts in it, that kind of thing. It was like,
Yeah.
and that stuff did bother me. But um and when I was growing up, I always thought the reason why I was different from everybody else was because I was poor. I did,
Hmm.
that was the lens. The reason why I don't have any friends, the reason why I can't relate with other people, the reason why I started reading psychology books when I was 12 years old to understand like why people don't make sense was because I grew up poor. I grew up in a way that all these other people did not. And that was my lens until I learned the autism part, right? And
Hmm.
then my brain went, oh, that the socioeconomic stuff absolutely plays a role. I have met
Sure it
people
does.
that like I enjoyed hanging out with, and when they learned about my background, they were no longer comfortable with me. Even though they would never have known if I hadn't said anything. or
Right.
it ruins conversations if I talk about my childhood when other people are talking about their childhood, even though I don't feel bad about my reality, but everyone else gets uncomfortable and goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I'm like, dude, can we not have a conversation without you changing the focus from the thing we're talking about to your discomfort? Like, you know, I hate that
Yeah.
shit. And
Do
it's,
you?
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's so it's become like where I can't be myself around other people
Yeah.
because of that, but then also the autism.
Yeah. um, Hello,
You said
ADHD. No, I can't.
you said do you, and then I don't know what
Oh,
the rest was.
no, it's okay. What the hell was I gonna say? Oh
I
my
thought
goodness.
I'm like I
It's,
can go back and repeat things and see if it helps.
no, no, it's okay. No, it's now it's gonna drive me nuts. I'll pop up with it like 5 minutes from now. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. No, yeah, no, I find like for me, my experience growing up was just I was achingly middle class. Um, so it was one of those things where I was like, grateful I'm not poor, but I'm also aware that I'm not affluent. I won't say rich,
Hmm.
but affluent. Like some of the kids that I would, like the kids that, like they had a car when they turned 16 and it wasn't, something that they pulled out of the junkyard for $100. Um, you like, and for me, it's like you were saying about, the people that you ended up being friends with or whatnot, they weren't like the white kids. Um, for me, it was always, and this may be because I was raised by a single mother, but I like most of my primary friend group are all women. For some reason, I just identify with them better. Um, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm cis hetero 50-year-old white guy,
Yeah,
but
but you're
for some
capable of
reason,
having conversations about yourself, things, your feelings, all of those things, and that's boys are not raised
it's
to do
rare.
that. And so it's very hard to relate and have meaningful connection with
Yep.
men in that way. And when I was younger, I tended to have mostly guy friends because I mostly had activity friends because I couldn't, when I talked about stuff, I couldn't relate with other people. Like I
Mm,
was too smart or too analytical or whatever, and they couldn't relate to what I was saying. So it was easier just to have friends where I didn't have to talk to them. And the female friends were predominantly talking about stuff I didn't care about, like boys. I didn't, I want to talk to boys, not about them, kind of thing.
yeah.
But when I would find somebody I could have a conversation with, then it was
Yeah.
like, oh, brains,
Yep. Yep. Yeah, no, what's funny is that like one of my closest friends, she said to me, like my mother, for a while when I was in high school, I didn't date, never didn't have a girlfriend until I was in my 20s. Um, she thought I was gay.
My
She
mom did that
literally
too.
confronted me and said, "Are you gay?" She's it's okay if you are. I just, and she went through this whole litany of things where I just, she just made her think I was gay. Um, of course, then I, started dating girls and I got married and had children and all that stuff. Um, but one of my closest friends now, I told her the story about my mother thinking I was gay, and she said, I can understand that. And I was like, what do you mean? When I first met you, you were like emotionally available. And like, so me being emotionally available apparently and it wasn't just one person, it was
Right.
several people thought I was gay because I was emotionally available. So, and it was literally, that's how I grew up with my mother. I mean, I have a stepfather, who I actually call dad. He's a wonderful guy. Really stepped up. I always say that he was ready to call me son. He called me son before I was ready to call him dad, and just stuck with it. And he's a wonderful human being. Um, but he was also a victim of that toxic masculinity. So and with my mother was my rock. And she always encouraged me to be um, uh,
A
emotionally
human
available.
being. To
Yeah,
be a human
have
being. Yeah.
feelings. You
Yeah.
have feelings. If you feel sad, you can cry. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And
And
there is,
unfortunately, that's an exception to, especially in our age group.
hmm
It's
hmm
it is such a yeah, when my son was born, I was just like, I didn't know the words to explain what bothered me about society in this way. I just knew that it wasn't cool. I didn't like the objectification. I like when I was 10, I said, I'm never getting married. I'm not having kids. I'm not doing any of that bullshit because I didn't want to give up my identity as a human being. Right. And I saw the
hmm
pressure at 10 years old that was going to be put on to me to be a woman. And I was like, I can't conform to that. I will never succeed. I'm never going to match what is expected anyways. I'm always going to be different. I'm not doing that. And I just told everybody I'm not doing that, you know? And when I had my son, I was trying to get my tube side actually when I got pregnant. And when I had him, I just was like, I have to do it differently. So I had this book that was kind of like my Bible, called Real Boys. It's about the boy code and basically how toxic masculinity is so subtly, woven into our society, the impacts of that, and what happens when you give little boys that freedom to express themselves and to feel what they're feeling, right? And I
yeah,
just I would read that and remind myself, to kind of keep my own internalized biases from shaping him, because he was already dealing with those. I mean, he was like in kindergarten, and they were calling him gay because when a kid fell, he stopped and asked them if they were okay and helped them up, and they're like, "Oh, you're gay." Like, what the fucking fuck, right? And he goes, "My grandma's gay. I don't understand the problem." Like he's so
yeah,
he's
yeah,
so my kid. But it was so important to me that he be as intact of a human being as possible because as a male, he was basically going to be like castrated emotionally if I didn't do that work.
yeah,
And I, this is like this blind spot when you start talking about the impacts of like this shit on men. People get like, yeah, but women. I'm like, no, the things that happen to women would not happen if we didn't do this to boys. It is a systemic issue that impacts everybody. Feminism does not succeed. We cannot evolve to humanism without feminism, and that includes the fucking boys. Like,
hmm
and if you can't see that, you're part of the problem. It's just,
yeah.
that's my hot take. But
Yeah, no, it's I totally get that. I mean, I still, growing up in the 80s, I go back the really eye-opening, I guess. I would say one mind-opening, whatever. But experience I had was I have two daughters. Um, and some people really don't like saying, I didn't understand until I had daughters. There is some truth to that. I think there's a lot of truth to that because when you have a child, suddenly the world around you isn't so happy-go-lucky all the time. And almost become more like you knew it, but you become more aware of it. And,
yeah,
having so many close female friends, I think made me even more hyper aware because I don't have one single female friend who doesn't have, as they say, a story.
right.
All of them, and most of them have several, and
I
some
only
of
have
them,
I only have one female friend that doesn't have a story.
and
That's it.
that's mind blowing. I
Yeah,
mean, my best friend, Meg, she went through a horrific domestic violence. Like she almost died.
right.
4 millimeters. Well, she got hit in the head with a machete, 4 millimeters one way or the other, and she'd have been dead.
Shit.
That adds to the layer of how unlikely our friendship is, right?
Right.
Um,
Well, and it also says so much about her willingness to invest in your friendship because it says a
yep.
lot about how she feels about her bond with you.
Yeah, and it's I always like with women when they tell me those things, I step back and I'm like, why do you trust me? You don't really know me
Yeah.
somewhat. Why do you trust me? What is it that, and some they all have different answers, but like somebody like Meg, she could be the most angry and bitter person and nobody would blame her.
Mhm.
But yet she gets up every day and chooses kindness and compassion. It's a
Yeah.
choice. And
I think
I've
it's,
told her it's like that inspires me every day.
yeah.
But it's like when I had my daughters, the world suddenly became more dangerous because it's like I can walk down the street at night and not have to worry. Women can't do that, or they
Right.
don't do that, can't or not, but it's either way. So now it's like there's that extra layer of concern, and I started to become more aware of how much of that toxicity was just like you said, just woven into the society. The perfect example was I loved the Jetsons when I was a kid. Loved the show. I sat down with my kids to watch it, and the you take somebody like Judy and how just absolutely paper thin her character was. Like there's no depth. Like they
Hmm.
don't, like Elroy had more depth than Judy.
Right.
And then you had Jane, who was this subservient uh housewife, and no aspirations and
I think the
did
robot had more sass than she did.
definitely. And the way that George would talk to her, um it very and even like dismissive of Judy. um I literally got through 2 episodes before I finally said, you know what, girls, let's watch something else.
Yeah. I never
I,
even,
I couldn't do it.
I couldn't watch it. I had a hard time with him when I was a kid. My dad would watch them all the time, like Popeye and all those. And Popeye was funny, but some of those the sitcom effect. There were
Hmm.
also like family messaging that I also didn't like in them. But the one that got me, dinosaurs, because when
Hmm.
dinosaurs came out, I loved the baby. I don't really remember the rest of the show. I just said,
Yeah.
not the mama, not the
Not the
mama,
mama.
not the mama. You do that again, I'm gonna throw you across the room. Not the mama. Right?
I'm the
Like,
baby. Gotta
and
love me.
yeah, again. So I went back and tried to watch it. Couldn't even get through the first episode. The sexism was just, I was just like, oh my God, this is like a 50s, 60s show. This is the awful.
That's why I'm grateful for Scooby-Doo. Like I
Yeah.
can I can sit and watch classic episodes of Scooby-Doo with my kids and not even blink. But it's that and then you take like the Flintstones and like growing up, I didn't even think about it because that's just how everything around me was.
Right.
Like the thing like I tried to um show my kids John Hughes movies like 16 Candles and Pretty in Pink and The Breakfast Club. And those movies would not get made today.
No,
There
I
was
never
so much sexism in them. It's ridiculous.
I
But
never watched them.
yeah, I mean,
I
so
think I'm
so
like one of
many
the only
people.
people in
Yeah.
our age. Like I couldn't even get through Breakfast Club. I couldn't, like, I hate all those shows. I could never watch Buffy either. I couldn't, like, you know, I just, I don't relate to the people. They're not interesting to
Hmm.
me. And yeah, so my son was not, he grew up, I'm trying to think what we watched. We watched Pokemon and Jurassic Park, Men in Black, stuff like that. And then we started watching more in-depth animes. He got older and
Hmm.
when he was ready for, I told him, when you're ready to watch a horror movie, let me know. and we'll watch a horror movie together. So when he was ready and felt comfortable, because he was very sensitive when he was small, so I didn't want him to. My parents never like sheltered me, so I had like very like I saw like The Howling when I was 7, and it like some of it really messed me up. Like,
Yep.
um, and then
Freaking
we
poltergeist.
watched Aliens, like that was his first
Yep.
horror movie, or Alien, and then all the rest. Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff. He might have gone on to watch that stuff when he was older, maybe with his friends, but there's a strong possibility he never saw any of it because I
Yeah.
never had the nostalgia effect for old old media because it never, there are some exceptions. I did try to watch Airwolf at one point, did not age well. I have really good memories of Airwolf, but
Yeah. I
just the
same with it.
helicopter is so
That
cool. What?
one.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It's just like that. Knight Rider, the A Team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chips was one my
Oh
mom liked to
gosh,
watch.
chips.
Yeah.
I had when I was like 6 or 7 or not even I had the 12-inch, we'll call them dolls, of the two characters
I didn't
and
even know. I didn't even
motorcycles.
know. I didn't know they even had them. I would have wanted them.
Oh my
I
God, I,
like
I had them. It was crazy.
That's so cool. My parents were bikers, so that was one of the only TV shows in which you had people riding motorcycles and they weren't
Mhm.
criminals. And this was
Right.
like a conversation in our house about the way media portrayed motorcyclists. And we actually had a police officer that actively harassed my mom's boyfriend. He had long hair and a beard and all that shit. And she actually had to
Yeah.
go to court and file against him to get him to stop because it was like he's basically stalking.
Oh my God.
And it was like ridiculous. Like aside from growing weed, my parents were law-abiding. They were nice. They helped people. They just grew weed. Like
Sure.
that was, for personal use. And like yeah, so that that was like that was part of it was that they were riding the motorcycles and it was like that was cool and
Hmm.
helping people and yeah, I still like crime shows. It's but I mostly prefer foreign crime shows because
Oh, okay.
um there were real people feel to them, even when they're kind
Hmm.
of out there. And
Hmm.
I like that depth, whereas things tend to be a little glittery with American stuff. Not always. Like the American remake of The Killing was really well done. There's
Yeah.
another one called Sinners, also really well done.
I've heard
Um,
that.
yeah, but they're less common. Fargo series is really good. I don't know if you watch that, but
I love the movie. I
yeah.
have not sat down. So I have this weird relationship with television shows. Um, I can't, if I have not seen it before, I can't put it on and do something else at the same time. Like it requires me to give it my full attention. Because when I've tried to do that, like I always have to go back and rewatch stuff. Like a perfect example was Battlestar Galactica, the new
The newer
one.
one. Yeah.
It took me longer to watch it because I watched it after it was over. It took me longer to watch it than it was actually on because I kept trying to do that where I'm going back and forth and I got a TV
Yeah.
right there. So I'm like, nope, nope, can't
Yeah.
do it. But if it's something that I've seen before, um, I can do that. I can sit there and I'll just occasionally glance over or I hear a scene coming up. I'll look over that I think is good or funny or whatever. Um, and I'm the same way with movies. I can't, and I used to be able to kind of multitask with that. But now it's like my brain just won't do it. I have to give that media my full attention because
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if it's like I'm afraid I'm gonna miss something. And it's like everything, like it's not just like intricate adult oriented television shows. Like if I see a new episode of SpongeBob SquarePants, I literally have to sit down and watch it and
Yeah.
not like be distracted.
Right.
And plus I love SpongeBob, so that's,
Yeah. SpongeBob is like SpongeBob wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Ren and Stimpy.
yes,
It's
absolutely.
and I love SpongeBob because of that. I mean, I think Courage the Cowardly Dog and Invader Zim were kind of like my adult favorites, like, but I have the same thing, but I have TV shows that I don't care about. So
Hmm.
it doesn't matter if I've seen them before or not. They're part of this sort of formulaic type of TV, so they can go on and I can craft. And if I miss it, I'll just watch it again at some point in the future, like
Yeah.
maybe 2 years from now. If it's something I'm really invested in, like Fargo or Better Call Saul or something, then I will watch it.
Yeah.
And it will take me longer to watch it because I'm gonna want to go do the things, and so I can't put as much time into watching, as I would with a TV show that's gonna be on while I'm doing stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and if I find I just can't focus, then I just kind of give up and come back to it later.
Yep.
Movies, I don't really watch movies almost at all. I only like watching them with people and I don't have people to watch them with. So I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's like some weird like wiring thing. It's not like I was super social when I was younger, but when I was married, my ex was like super into like movies and would make me watch stuff when like we'd go to the theater on opening day, which is abhorrent to me.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Nope.
I
Too
want to
many
go
people.
in I want to go to Monday afternoon, 2 months after it came out, where I don't have to smell things or hear other things. And but
You can't even do that anymore. Two
yeah.
months after it's out, 2 months after it's out, it's already streaming.
Yeah, well, and now that means I don't have to go to the theater at all. I can
Right,
stay in my
exactly.
chair that's comfortable. And but yeah, so I don't know. It's like I've been trying to work on that, but I just haven't really figured out. Like Tyler and I are supposed to have a movie night eventually, but we've been talking about it for a year and a half now. Like
Yeah.
it's just, but they're not movies do not have the depth of story that TV shows have now, right? And I'm not
Hmm.
talking about like the formulaic ones where there's not a lot of it's encompassed in each episode. I'm talking about the ones where they
Right.
tell, and that because I love reading books and series
Hmm.
can give you that detail that books give you. And so I think I'm just drawn to the more in-depth storytelling. Whereas the movies, I always am like, they jumped over a thing. But what about that? I'm not super comfortable relying on assumptions. I kind of want more, like I always,
Yeah.
there are exceptions. There are some movies that just, they're great the way they are and probably wouldn't work as, as, like, the one with Simon Pegg, the zombie one. That's a good
Oh,
movie.
Shaun of the Dead. I
Yeah.
love that movie. That's
I don't
such a
feel
good
like that would
movie.
translate to a series.
No, I think I think it doesn't. I think it does. In that case, it's like you don't need anything more in depth. Um, but zombie shows and movies are so like, I mean, me, I'm a fan, but they're so interesting to me because you can tell so many different stories with that concept. I mean, it's like I don't look at like I look at Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead, and then I look at the remake, and I don't like. Yes, they both deal with a group of people that shelter in a mall, and eventually everything goes sideways. But I don't look at them as retelling the same story because if the zombie apocalypse were to happen, how many groups of people are actually going to shelter in a mall
Right.
or a grocery store or something like that? That probably during a zombie apocalypse that probably happened all over the country.
Right.
So you can tell that story of people in a mall many times.
Yeah.
And but the dynamic of the people are different because you have different actors and you have a different script. And so it to me it works. And it's like that's why they were able to drag out The Walking Dead for so long. And now
Yeah.
you've got three other spin-off shows, you
Oh my
know.
God. I've watched them all, but I have spent a lot of time yelling at the TV for the plot holes. But I'm like, why are you doing the thing that you knew to do 2 seasons ago? Now you don't know how to do it. Why aren't you doing the thing? But I don't,
Oh,
like I
it's
have a
yep.
friend who hates remakes and he gets super, super salty and you're like, why can't people be more unique and blah blah. And I'm always like, to me, it's somebody else taking this idea, turning it around in their brain and playing with it. So they're getting to be creative with this concept. And as far as the story goes, even if it's they're using the same character, same name, I just look at it as a multiverse situation. If I enjoy that particular story, I don't mind it being retold in a different way. It's kind of like Stephen King books and short stories. And when they get put on TV, sometimes they're hella warped from what they originally were, right?
Oh yeah.
And I could hate them, or I can just relax and go along with what people, a lot of times Stephen King had fun with it too. So it's like it's just storytelling. I'm here for the ride. Thank you for listening. Join me next week for the continuation of this conversation. Want to support my creative chaos and get access to exclusive content? Check out my Patreon. Have a great week.